And they always got these. And they always having fun.
Hi, I'm Stavros Gasparatos. I'm a composer and sound artist. I work, apart from my solo work, I work a lot with collaborating with artists in the theater and dance performances, art installations and stuff. If I had to say a couple of things about myself, I always, in my music, I always combine or try to combine the classical world and the classical elements and forms of composing classical instrumentation with experimental elements and electronic music and sound design elements and stuff. So the other thing that I am doing, especially the last few years, is working with specialized sound and trying to incorporate specialization of sound as one of my main elements of composing. That's all for me. So I'm here with ACCUSONUS and their amazing software Regroover. And I will start by giving you some of the basics of Regroover for those who don't know how it works. And then on the second part, I will try to explain how I use it, or as the guys from ACCUSONUS refer, how I abuse it. So yeah, how I use it in different ways that it's meant to be. So yeah, you'll see. So what is Regroover? If we can have my laptop view, yeah. So that's not Regroover, that's Ableton Live. So Regroover is a software instrument that's meant to extract stems from your loops, from your stereo loops, and enable new beat-making workflows by doing that. So let's open up Regroover. I'll start with so when you open it up, you see this. And I have here a couple of loops. Let's, yep. Let's play. So this is the actual stereo loop. I have several of those here. I just have to drag and drop it. It takes a second to analyze it, and then now we just hear the loop playing back from Regroover. And when we hear, and you see already that it split the stereo loop into 4 stems. We could go for even more. So, and when we hear all the elements together, all the layers, we hear exactly what we started with. So we hear exactly the loop. But if I start soloing the stems, you see that it detected and has analyzed and split layers. So this is this. The bass drum. So as you already see, that's completely different than chopping, slicing, and it's a completely new way to separate tracks, to separate stems from your existing loop. So for me, it's surreal already. So then I'll just show you a glimpse of a couple of things you can do with it, and I won't go into detail because we won't have time. We can work for hours and hours, and I always while working see new things. So you could even go deeper and extract your stems with more detail by using this annotation area here, or go to more layers or less layers and stuff, and then you could play around with the loop. You could change the markers here. Can we have it a bit lower? You can change the markers here and create new patterns. That's one thing. You can of course remix the loop. You can, of course, remix the loop. Start, I don't know, take the kick out and put some EQ or compressor just to the kick or just to the snare and completely remix it. That's one of the things. In any pattern you make or any mix that you make, you can always extract. Let's say I did this, and I also just cut the bass drum. So this amazing loop that I made, I can go here, grab the audio and extract it to a different channel. So I have a new loop from the already existing loop. But that's just one of the million things you can do. You can go here and pick up samples, anything you like, and by just picking it, you can either go and create, you can either go take your sample here and create a new, why don't I hear it? I picked the volume, the layer. Yeah, so. So if I go here and pick the kick, I can either go here and make, let's say, with a couple of hits, make a new drum rack here. Sorry. Or I can, the same way that I dragged it and dropped it in the Regroover drum rack, I can go out in my DAW and extract anything I want. It stems, parts of it, new arrangement and remixes of the loop. So with the loops that you have a million new loops now. It's from going from a static loop to a more dynamic way of working with loops and creating 1,000 different things from just a couple of loops. So I use the software this way all the time. I use to get samples from loops that I already have, to take samples out of loops that don't fit with the things that I'm writing at the time, or whatever. But that was a very brief overview of what you can do and what Regroover is made for. So Regroover is made for working with, beats and for beat making. And it's fine-tuned to work with rhythmical stuff, and via machine learning, it picks rhythmical patterns and splits the stems. But let's try and see a couple of different things that I do with it. First of all, something quite straightforward. I very often use Regroover to work with single hits and either sculpture the sounds that I have, or one thing that I very often do is spread them in the stereo image. So let me import one here. I'll unsync it because it's just so let me first play it from Ableton, and so this is the actual hit that I'll use, and here's the imported one. So it's exactly the same because I hear all the layers, but now you can see how interesting it is to see that how it splits it into different small sounds. I find it so fascinating. So, and now that I have those elements, those layers, I can just pan them around. and create a completely new stereo image in a way that I could never do with any other tool, completely different than all the other tools that are there for stereo imaging. So I'll start to go fast and just give you one more example. Let's hear, let's see. No, let's hear. That's an interesting one. So this is my piano. And you can also play it as a piano. So again, this is, let me be sure. Yeah. So again, see how, no, there's nothing here. Amazing. So let's say these little sounds that it picked here, I want them higher. And maybe I want more of a high end to them. So I can also EQ them. Amazing. And now let's pan it also. So you can see this is a very small example of how you can sculpture sounds with Regroover. It's not meant to do that, but it does it amazingly. So, and now let's take it to the next level and go surround. So, as I said before, I really want to mix classical sounds and classical instruments together with extreme experimental stuff, and also working with classical instruments in weird ways. So I have here a couple of examples. So this is a string cluster that I recorded. So what I'll do, while showing you another feature of Regroover. So what I have here, I'll just go here. Sorry. I don't have my multi-screen set up, so let's be sure and unsync it. So I just drag and drop it here, and what I did now is, if you see on the right, on the left, on the layers there, you can, every layer, every stem of that Regroover extracts, you can send it to different outputs and then process it through your DAW in any way you like. What I did is I set up different outputs for each layer. So you see, layer out goes to output 2, and so on and so forth. And underneath that, I have 4 audio tracks that are listening to those 4 different outputs. And I have, if everything goes well, because I didn't test it, and I have the four outputs going to the 4 speakers that we have in the space. So let's hear how it sounds now. So I rest my case. I find it amazing. This is a completely new way of working with splitting audio into many channels, because I've used it in a couple of art installations, and it's so interesting to see, let's say, 4 speakers. And when you're at dead center of the 4 speakers, you hear everything that you started with. And when you move around, you hear all the layers. Let me solo some layers here so you can understand what it did. So you see, this is amazing, because you can hear abstract things that if you hear them all together, it blends to the actual sound source that you recorded, but then you have all those elements to play with and to move in surround, and you could never do that with any other tool, because this information is already there. And for me, it's also conceptually, as an artist, apart from what the guys that were designing it for, conceptual as an artist is, and because it's machine learning behind it, it's like audio is a stream of data, and it splits it to raw data and then puts it back again in a musical way. And for me, it's so fascinating. And now let's try just another one, another example. Let's try, I have a couple of weird ones. I'll just throw it there, not talk anymore. So this is a recording. Sorry. This is a recording that I did. Let me play it back. This is a machine, a huge industrial mixer. And let's see when we play it in the same outputs. I don't know if you're as excited as I am, but I am very excited. So, and let's try it with loops as well. Let's try a loop and let's see what it will spit into the 4 channels that I made. Sorry, I'm syncing it because I haven't set it up the tempos right. So. This is the actual loop in stereo, and this is the loop. So different than, because I've worked with surround sound a lot, and it's so different than panning stuff around and moving them. It feels like a weird organic way of things moving together, like Regroover puts them there and moves them around. So sometimes it works great. Other times you can sometimes you have 4 channels easily. Other times you have a couple of channels that work for you, but you can do very interesting stuff with it. So next up, and I will close with performing for you, or playing back and performing for you a track that I did for a choreographer, Blenard Adjizaz, that it's based here in Berlin. And we premiered it as a stereo piece, and then we went to Austria and wanted to do a surround mix of it. So I used Regroover to do that, and to help you understand what I did, I'll play back the track and I'll play the strings and some percussion, and I will move stuff around live. But as you see the arrangement here, all the blue ones are the ones, the track that I started with, and the magenta ones are the extracted stems that I worked from Regroover. And I exported them, as I showed you before, just by drag and dropping, and just spread them into different outputs. I haven't automated anything. Everything you hear in the surround, apart from the little things that I will move around while playing it back, is movement that was created by this extraction of elements from stereo files to the extracted stems. So let's go for it. Let me once. So this and this and. Sorry. Yes. Okay, those are the things that I'll do while I will try also and navigate you through the arrangement and so now we can have the stereo a tiny bit more. So we can have the sub. Thank you. That was it. That's all from me. The idea wasn't the performance, was the. I hope you like the track, but I hope that you will also be able to follow all the stems and how the extracts that I got, the extracted stems that I got from Regroover, made everything move around the space. So that's, for me, it's a completely new way of working, and this tool and this picking with a weird digital mind that picks stuff for me, it's a very interesting way to work with digital audio. A completely new way of thinking, and I'm so excited for it. That's all for me. I don't know if you have something to ask, and I'll answer. 3, 2, 1. Nobody? Thank you so much. Thanks for coming.